Hello and welcome to Chronically Overdressed. I'm Christine, the Glambassador. Bonjour mes amis. So a few days ago, as you know, I hit 2,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. I've been doing this channel now for less than a year, and yeah, I can't believe I've already gotten 2,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm very appreciative of your support, and I hope to continue on and give you great content. I'm very much enjoying it. But to celebrate, I thought it would be fun to do a Q&A session. So a couple days ago, when I hit 2,000, I put a question out on the community tab just to put it out there. Have you guys asked me questions, and got lots of great responses, and some on my Instagram, some on my Facebook page. So thank you so much for for sending in those questions. So let's get to the answers, and hopefully you can get to know a little bit more about me. Okay, so the first question is, why have you lived in different countries and now Hawaii? So I've talked about this a little bit on my blog and also on my Instagram, but it's for my husband's job. So I'm originally from San Diego, and we moved from San Diego to North Carolina simply because we could no longer afford to live in San Diego. And my best friend lived in North Carolina, so we just kind of up and moved there. But every move since then has been due to my husband's job. He works for the U.S. government, and the division that he works for has offices all over the world. And so we have been incredibly fortunate to be able to travel and live in many different places. And that's why we're here in Hawaii right now. So next question. Do you typically wear true vintage or reproduction pieces? And what is your experience with true to size online merchants? So if you watch one of my other videos about plus size inclusivity, you'll get a little bit more information about my feelings on the true to size online merchants. But to answer your first question, I do mostly wear reproduction. It's pretty hard for me to find true vintage in my size. Although I will say recently, in the last year or so, I have been incredibly fortunate to find some really awesome true vintage pieces. Could be that I just have more time on my hands to actually search through stuff. But yeah, I would say probably 90% of my wardrobe is reproduction. And I typically try to stay within the better reproduction companies out there that are doing true reproduction, not retro. But you can definitely find some really great items on ModCloth, or even just, Target sometimes has some really great basics that you can style and fashion into a more vintage look. But yeah, mostly reproduction. As far as sizing goes with online merchants, there is, a lot of discrepancy there, and a lot of work needs to be done to fix that. Most really good online reproduction companies will list their sizes in measurements, in addition to whatever number size they're giving it. I generally, I don't care what number they give it. If they give it an actual measurement, that's what I'm going off of, because that doesn't change. I mean, you can have a 1X dress in one brand that fits me perfectly, but then in another brand, that exact dress with the same exact measurements could be a 5X. So yes, I have an issue with that. Please go watch my other video to see me kind of go off on that. But yeah, as long as they are listing the actual measurements of the garment, then I'm more apt to buy them. And I do find that some of the better reproduction brands, that's how they list their brands, or list their garments. Okay. My question is, have you ever sewn your own vintage inspired clothing? I'm planning on starting to do so, but I'm honestly terrified. I am right there with you. So the answer is no. I have not actually sewn anything that would resemble a garment. I've done placemats. I have done, anything that's kind of in a square is fine. I've done napkins. But to be honest, sewing terrifies me. And my husband laughs at me all the time because he tells me I'm afraid of math. Math terrifies me. And that is all I see when I see sewing. I see math. I don't understand the patterns. I don't understand how, this thing connects to this thing. And my brain just kind of goes into a frizzy and it's just too much. But I want to so badly. I love the idea of it. My mother sewed all of my clothes until I was about 10 or 11 years old. And sadly, she never taught me how to sew. I can sew on a button. I can do some hand stitching. I have done hems on skirts and trousers. I can do straight lines, kind of. But yeah, the actual, laying out a pattern, cutting it out, putting it together, it just, it really kind of, it terrifies me as well. I literally need someone to walk me through it, like physically be here with me, walk me through it one time so I could see how it's done. And that would make sense. I've taken a course of, just basic sewing. That's how I made my placemats and my napkins. But actual garments, that's what's scary to me. So maybe someday when I have a little bit more time on my hands, I would love to. I really would. And I admire anybody who can actually create a garment out of, any kind of scraps of fabric and putting it together. It's a skill that I do not possess yet. Here's a longer one. How do you care for your clothing in terms of keeping it clean and maintaining its original state? I'm always afraid to wear some of my vintage clothes because I tend to sweat a lot and I worry that I'll ruin them. I've had experiences where clothes just don't look good anymore from machine washing them over time. And of course, some clothes need different care, which is very time consuming. I'm wondering how to keep them clean between washes, and do you wear something underneath or just wash them? So, yes, that is a very good question. As I said, I don't wear a lot of vintage, true vintage, but when I do, I typically hand wash all of my true vintage, unless I know that I can put it in the washing machine with other true vintage that is on a gentle cycle in the washing machine. I do use retro wash for all of my true vintage items. It's great for soaking. It's really good for the gentle wash cycle. To be honest, I don't wash my clothes after every use. Unless I've been uber sweaty, and here in Hawaii, that's kind of easy to do. But yeah, I don't like to wash my clothes after every single use. I usually hang them up. I have a separate hook in my wardrobe that I can just hang up my clothes, and it just kind of like airs them out before I put them back into the wardrobe with all the other clothes to get smashed in there. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but I'm not a fan of just, constantly washing or wearing and washing and wearing and washing. That does tend to wear them out. But to the question of, do you wear something underneath? Yes, always. I always wear a slip. I wear slip shorts pretty much every day. If I'm not wearing like an actual full slip, sometimes I'll have the slip shorts on and then a little camisole on underneath. As far as sweating is concerned, I haven't really had a lot of problems with ruining my clothes because of that. Even with living in Hawaii, it gets really, really hot and sweaty here. But they do have underarm guards that you can put in. Sometimes they have a little adhesive on them, and they just kind of go right under on the underarm part. And those are disposable, but they do have some that they're washable. So you can buy a couple of them and you just pin them in. There's other, I know I have a couple of them on my Amazon page, like my favorites page. There's a few different ones on there, and those can really help if you are concerned about the underarm area getting ruined on a really nice vintage dress. But yeah, other than that, I always wear a slip, and I run really hot anyway, and having a slip on, I know it sounds strange because you're putting on another layer of clothing, but it actually helps to keep me cool. I usually I have some silk slips, I have nylon slips, and I have cotton slips. Just depends on what outfit I'm wearing and what length I need. But I do find I wear the silk slips a lot in the winter time because that keeps me warmer. It holds in the heat, and but also in the summertime, the silk is very breathable. So it's one of those just wonderful fabrics. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Washing on a gentle cycle, hand washing, and yeah, what I'll do is I'll kind of like pile everything up that needs to be washed, and I'll just do it all in one day. So, but most of my clothing is machine washable, and you can do it on a gentle cycle. Some of them can just be done on a regular cycle. And don't wash it every time you wear it unless you've gotten it dirty or unless you're really sweaty. So that's my advice. Okay, so I got this question twice from two different people, or at least a variation of it. My question is, do you have days where you just hang out and wear PJs and go without makeup? You always seem put together every single day. Of course I do. I'm made up because I'm on TV, I'm on the YouTube, I'm taking pictures. Yeah, of course, there's days that I just lounge around the house. I'm not a big fan of wearing PJs all day long. I do have kind of more loungy type outfits that maybe to, a muggle out there, it would look like PJs. But yeah, there's definitely days where I don't want to put on makeup and I'm just sitting at home and relaxing and I don't want to get all done up. So yeah, that happens. But especially since I have been now working from home, I'm a creature of habit. I like routine. I like rituals. So I still get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I get ready for the day, even if I'm not going outside. It's something that I enjoy doing. I like getting ready. I like having makeup on. I like doing my hair. And even though I'm not going anywhere, even if I'm not doing a photo shoot that day, even if I'm not filming that day, I'll still get ready. And I'll use it as a day to maybe try a new hairstyle out or try on a new outfit. But I just find that getting up and getting ready, it really helps me stay motivated throughout the day. There was a time early on during the pandemic that I wasn't getting ready. I wasn't doing my makeup. I wasn't doing my hair. And I really do feel that contributed to a lull and a bit of depression that I went through. And when I finally decided that I was just going to get up every day like I normally would if I was going to work, it brought me out. It brought me out of that dark place, and it was very helpful. So yeah, I'm very happy to just lounge around the house and not be made up a couple of times a week. That's not a problem for me. Okay, so I have a question about my skincare routine. Several years ago, I wrote a blog post which kind of outlines everything that I use, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's been the same thing for probably 20 years. I am a Dr. Hauschka devotee. I have been using Dr. Hauschka products since I was about 17 or 18 years old, and I swear by them. I love them. I'm actually a Dr. Hauschka esthetician. I became a Dr. Hauschka esthetician after I had been using the products for years. So I am totally drinking the Hauschka Kool-Aid. It's wonderful. I love it. I am going to be 45 in a couple of weeks, and I honestly believe that the skincare products that I use regularly has contributed to, my great skin. Obviously, I have really good genes as well. My mother and my grandmother both had really great skin, so there's definitely that in there. But I truly, truly, truly believe that Dr. Hauschka is a brand that every single person can benefit from. I love their philosophy on skincare, and when I went to school for aesthetics, I, learned the kind of the traditional way that skincare is taught. And then I went to school, furthered my education with Dr. Hauschka, and kind of had to unlearn all of that. And I really believe in their philosophy. Their skincare is geared more towards balancing the skin and helping the skin do its own stuff rather than constantly correcting it. Most skincare is geared towards correction. Dr. Hauschka skincare is geared towards support. So it supports the skin's natural function. Our skin and our body they're amazing. They know how to protect themselves. They know how to cleanse themselves. They know how to do all of these things. We get in the way of it. And that's what Dr. Hauschka is about. And it's a holistic brand. It's completely organic. And I really love their philosophy. So if you go to my website and check out my skincare ritual, there's all of the information on there. But if you would like me to do a video on my skincare routine, please comment below and I will put something together for you. Okay, so I debated on whether or not to put this question in or not. So I'm curious, and if you don't wish to answer, I understand. You made an Instagram post a while back about being interested in the craft. I practice as well, and I would love to hear your insight on mixing that along with your love of vintage. So, yes, I am a witch. I have been a witch for many, many years. And really the only thing that vintage and my witchcraft have to do with each other was they kind of started at the same time. So I was about 15, 16 years old when I started dressing in vintage, and that is also when I came to the craft. So that's really the only kind of overlap between the two. I'm not sure I know that they kind of overlap in any other way. I don't think one feeds on the other, but it's just a part of me. It's one facet of who I am and what makes me me. It is a very large part of who I am. And it's very important and special to me, but yeah, I don't talk about it a lot because it's private. It's not something that everybody needs to know, but I'm open and honest about it if somebody asks me. So, but yeah, I've definitely gotten some feedback, I guess, from some followers about me being a witch, and it is what it is. If you don't want to follow me anymore because I'm a witch, that's your choice. That's fine. But I will say that the more open I am about it, especially within the vintage community, the more I realize that there are a lot of us out there in this vintage community. There's more than you think. So it's wonderful to know that I do have this kind of subset of a subset in the community, which is great. And some of my really close friends within the vintage community are also witches. And it's great to know that I have that extra support as well. And, we can get together on that level in addition to the vintage level. Okay, so this is another question that I got too, of pretty much the same question. Is your husband into vintage fashion? And if not, has he always been supportive of it in general and out in public? So Yes, he is. He wasn't always. We have been married for almost 20 years now, and I have always been vintage since we've been together. But even before, even when we met, he was very interested in it. Our first date was to go see LaVey Smith and her Red Hot Skillet Lickers. He's a huge jazz fanatic. He knows more about jazz than I think anybody on this earth that I know of. And yeah, so he's always been interested in that aspect, but he didn't really know where to go and what to do. So yes, he does dress in vintage when we are out together. Unfortunately, with his job, it doesn't really allow for him to dress vintage at work. So he reserves that for when we're going out, when we're traveling together. And as far as him being supportive, 1,000%, yes. Like I said, when we met, I was wearing vintage clothes. That's just who I was. He has gone through all of my evolutions of my look, and he's always been supportive of me. He is an amazing Instagram husband. He takes some of my photos for me. He also acts as my bodyguard when we're out in public and people like to try and take photographs of me. My husband's a big guy, so he just kind of stands right in front of me and blocks their photos. So the knowledge that there's pictures of his back, so many pictures of his back out there, just makes me really happy. That I hate it when people just randomly start to take photos without asking. And he's such an eagle eye. He can see them, happening. And so he'll just stand right in front of me and block the photo. It's kind of funny. But yes, he's incredibly supportive, and he's there as a sounding board for all of my crazy ideas. He's been there when I started my blog. He's obviously been there when I started this YouTube channel. He's personally a very private person, so he likes to be behind the camera. You will very rarely see him. And that's okay. He's, that's his choice. He doesn't want to be out in the public eye. If anybody's ever met my husband, he's very quiet. He's very subdued. I'm the loud one. I'm the outgoing one. We work really well together. So, but yes, I am incredibly fortunate to know that he's always got my back, and he's very supportive of, of all of my decisions. Okay, so hi Christine. What would be your best advice for someone who's wanting to dress vintage more regularly and build up a few items of clothing in their vintage wardrobe, particularly from a budget point of view? So I'm actually planning a video on this. I know that there's a lot of kind of how to start dressing vintage videos out there. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to round this out yet. So if you have suggestions, if you have particular questions on this, please let me know in the comments, and I'm more than happy to kind of create it the way that you want. My main thing is that classic styles, classic silhouettes never go out of style. They are always available, even in contemporary clothing. And it's really, for me, the way that I started it was I accessorized. I had modern clothing. I had some thrift store clothes and some vintage store clothes, but I really didn't know what the silhouettes were. I didn't really know what what I was doing, but I accessorized. I had brooches, I had handbags, I got into hats, and that was a really great way for me to still have contemporary clothing that had a classic style, but then adding those vintage accessories or adding that kind of vintage flair to it just changed the whole ensemble together. As far as being on a budget, huge fan of separates when it comes to that. Getting basic separates that you can mix and match. Having a couple of pairs of skirts, a couple of pairs of trousers with some blouses, and you can mix and match all of those, and you've got several different outfits. And then again, adding some accessories to them, changing up a belt, changing up, adding a scarf maybe. Then you kind of create a whole new outfit, a whole new look. And that's a really good budget-friendly way to do it. Accessories are generally less expensive, except when you get into the vintage hats. But berets you can get multiple colors, and there you go. Scarves are another great way that are fairly inexpensive. I find tons of scarves at thrift stores. So yeah, there's definitely ways that you can start dressing vintage and incorporating that into your wardrobe. Hi, Christine. I love dressing vintage, but I was wondering, how can I get a more authentic look with reproduction pieces? Also, where do you get all your cute vintage hats? So this is another video that I'm working on. I'm actually working on 2 videos that discuss the details and the silhouettes of a 1930s style and a 1940s style. And that is really, for me, the biggest step in looking authentic is figuring out and learning about the silhouettes of those eras, like what really was popular, what was worn during that time. And I try to stay away from the actresses and the models of that time, and I have curated photographs of real people, just everyday women, and seeing what their hairstyles were. That to me gives a more authentic look. As far as with reproduction pieces, there's so many amazing reproduction companies out there that are doing really good authentic pieces. They're making clothing based on the actual vintage patterns of the time. So that's a pretty simple way to do it. Where do I get my cute vintage hats? I am constantly looking at hats. I get a lot of them. I get the majority of them online, to be honest. I buy on eBay. I buy on Etsy. When I get back to the mainland, I scour vintage shops, antique malls. When I lived in Maryland, that's probably the one thing that I miss most about being on the mainland, are the antique malls. I miss those so very much. And there was one in particular that I would go to on a weekly basis. It's pretty bad, in Pasadena, Maryland. But yeah, in that area, there's so many vintage stores and thrift stores and antique malls. But yeah, I'm just constantly on the lookout for hats and brooches. And like I said, most of them are on Etsy and eBay. And I have several different alerts set up on my phone for eBay, for plus size clothing, for hats, for shoes. Not so much brooches. I don't get many brooches on eBay. Yeah, there's so many different places, but check online. You can definitely find a lot online and on thrift stores and antique malls if you have them in your area. Okay, so a question about lipstick. I'm fairly new to wearing it and feel slightly overwhelmed with all the choices. What tones and colors should I be looking for to give a vintage look, and what colors and finishes to avoid? I understand that this can vary from person to person due to individual differences in skin tones. And what are some of your favorites? Yes, so this is, I get a lot of questions about my lipstick colors. So being a makeup artist, I have seen red lipstick on every single skin tone, and honestly, I truly believe that there is a red lipstick for every single person out there. A lot of it has to do with your own comfort level. I've put on red lipstick on someone who doesn't really wear it, and in my eyes, they look spectacular. but because they're not used to seeing it and it's so bright and it's so bold to them, they hate it. And then they think that red lipstick doesn't look good on them. And so it is a very subjective thing. But I think for the most part, I would start out with a blue-based red, like a true red. Russian red from MAC has always been kind of my go-to. It's what I always go back to. And I don't think that I've ever seen that color on somebody that I thought, that didn't really go. It's a perfect color, honestly, for everybody. And it does look different on different skin tones, which I love. I love how it kind of morphs and changes, and it just makes the person look spectacular. Right now, because of wearing a mask and everything, even though I barely leave the house anymore, I've been using a lot more long-wearing lipsticks. I've been using the MAC Retro Liquid Lip, Retro Matte Liquid Lip in Feel So Grand, and Fashion Legacy is another one. It's a brighter, kind of a slightly orangey red. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to try a few different types. And I mean, when all of this is over and you can go back to a department store or to Sephora and where you can actually try a few. I loved when Besame would give you the little matchbox or the little matches of samples. Those were amazing, and they helped a lot because, you see a beautiful color, you're buying it online, it's not cheap. You want to make sure that that color is going to work for you. So if you can, I know that at Sephora, I used to work at Sephora, and we used to be able to make kind of little like sample pots, of lipstick from the testers. And you can take that home and you can try it, use a lip pencil or a lip brush and put them on that way. I don't know if they're still doing that. They're certainly not doing it right now, but when all of this is over, that might be an option for you. But yeah, I have orange-based reds. I have blue-based reds. I have like a more pinky kind of fuchsia-y reds. As far as vintage is concerned, like the look is matte. It's matte. It's not glossy. It's not even really satiny. But again, if you're more comfortable with satin, if you're more comfortable with that, then wear it. As long as you're not doing you're not doing reenactments, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you're comfortable in. Some people don't like the matte feel because it is a little bit drying on their lips, and so do a little bit more satin. That's fine. So there's really nothing, I don't say, try to avoid this, try to avoid that. I mean, women were wearing, they were wearing a lot of red, but pinks, fuchsias, no lipstick at all. It's really what your comfort level is that's going to shine through, and that's going to make you much more comfortable and confident. All right, guys. Well, that is all. Thank you so much for all of your support, for all of your questions. This was really fun. We will do this again at, say, 5,000 subscribers. So hopefully we'll see when that happens. But thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your support. My husband also thanks you for the inquiries about him. He's very flattered that you included him in the questions. And we will see you soon. Bye.